Hi everyone, sorry for being late. A new teaser for Life is Strange 2 was recently released, giving us an exciting glimpse at some very strange events caught on a police dashcam. It's a very short and contained teaser, but if we dig a little deeper, there is quite a bit we can learn from it. So, let's take a look. First, let's figure out the when and where. The events in this teaser take place on October 28th, 2016. In relation to Season 1, this is pretty much 3 years after the events of the first game with Max and Chloe. In relation to Captain Spirit, it takes place about 1 to 2 months prior this Saturday morning with Chris and Charles. It's not clear on when exactly Captain Spirit takes place. Judging by this letter, the earliest date could be November 29th, 2016, but for now, I'm going to assume it's in early December, which means Captain Spirit takes place a month and a bit after the events in the teaser. In terms of where this event takes place, it's not directly mentioned. You can see an American flag and a bit of the sea, which I guess means this town is on one of the American coastlines similar to Arcadia Bay. But going back to Captain Spirit for a moment, there is a newspaper clipping on the kitchen table that talks about protests happening in Seattle. Protests that have continued to mount 1 month after the unexplained deaths of a local man and a police officer. I'll come back to this article later, but this bit definitely seems to be in reference to the events in the teaser, meaning it would be taking place somewhere in Seattle. So we've got a good idea of when and where this event takes place, but let's take a closer look at exactly what happens. Police Officer Matthews, when he pulls up to the house, mentions that he has a 1010 in progress. He gives the address and says he's going to need backup. After some totally in-depth and thorough research on the internet, a code 1010 is a fight in progress. There's a time skip of about 2.5 minutes between Matthews calling in a 1010 and things escalating. In the background, you can hear multiple voices, I counted 4, that sounded pretty scared.
Didn't do anything. It's gonna be all right. On the ground.
So the first voice right at the beginning sounds like he's saying please, but with the P sound just slightly cut off. The second voice I think is either saying I didn't do anything or he didn't do anything. It's a bit hard to make out. The third voice is much clearer and mentions a name. Daniel, it's going to be all right. The fourth and final voice just says on the ground in a more commanding tone. I'm assuming this is either Officer Matthews or a different backup officer.
Didn't do anything. It's gonna be all right. On the ground. Didn't do anything. It's gonna be all right. On the ground. Didn't do anything. It's gonna be all right. On the ground.
After the voices, it becomes eerily silent for a second, until the police car mysteriously flips over and the title screen comes on with the backpack again. We then hear some tire screeching, along with some more voices of police officers giving us more codes.
306. Backup. Possible 1080. We need backup. I repeat, we need backup.
The first mentions a 1053, which from our in-depth research indicates a road is blocked. He also mentions to send backup immediately. A second voice says 306, which I believe is referencing a specific officer or patrol car, I'm not too sure. A third voice then says backup, possible 1080, which indicates a chase in progress. A fourth and final voice in a more desperate tone says we need backup, I repeat, we need backup, before being cut off.
Backup immediately. 306. Backup. Possible 1080. We need backup. I repeat, we need backup.
So, a lot happens in these short few seconds. I've already seen some theories fly here and there about what's really going on, but I think it's pretty clear. Some sort of fight is happening, the situation escalates, more police get involved, and someone gives us another glimpse at what kind of power will be featured in Season 2. A pretty strong telekinesis ability to control objects without physically interacting with them. More on this later. Very quickly, I'll mention a few other observations. The first thing I want to mention, and maybe this is obvious to most of you, but it doesn't seem like there's actually been a 911 call to the fight in progress. Earlier on in the trailer, Matthew doesn't seem to be going anywhere specifically. He's just on patrol, and only accidentally stumbles upon whatever's going on, and this might have some importance with the next point. The second thing I'll mention comes back to the newspaper article from earlier. In it, it mentions that 2 people have died, the police officer and the local man who appeared to be shot. Now, I didn't hear any gunshots during the trailer, trailer, so I can only assume that any shooting probably happened during that time jump of 2 minutes. When shit hits the fan and the police officer is knocked back, you can see that he does have a gun in his hand. You can see it laying on the ground afterwards, meaning that he probably was pointing it at somebody earlier and probably used it. So combine that with the line "he didn't do anything" and that possibly no 911 call was placed and that Officer Matthew just stumbled upon whatever was happening out of chance, and you can imagine that something pretty unfortunate and tragic has probably occurred here. Combine that with the police not having released an official statement, the whole viewpoint of the trailer coming from the police dashcam footage, and the riots and protests happening because of the shooting, you can see pretty clearly what kind of new social issues and events Donut are wanting to explore here. In 2016, there were a large number of riots and protests happening in the US due to police shootings. Donut also started working on Life is Strange 2 right at the beginning of 2016, so I can see where some of their inspiration for these elements might have come from during development, and it seems the outcome of such an event might work as a catalyst to the story in Season 2. Outside of what I just mentioned before, there's really nothing more we know about this specific situation, so I'll talk a bit more about this another time if we learn more. Instead, let's talk about theories. Who's Daniel? What happened after this event? And what happened to the other voices in the background? Before we do though, I just want to mention quickly that over the last few weeks, a lot of you have brought to my attention certain files about Season 2 that were found in the files of Captain Spirit, giving us all kinds of details like story stuff, locations, and names, and Daniel is one that pops up. Now that, the name of the other boy, and something about a bathtub is really all I know regarding these files. I've chosen not to look at them in depth, and I don't think I'll make a video on them because, let's be honest, it's not that fun when you know everything beforehand. If you do want to find these files, there's videos and subreddits you can look for that probably detail everything, but I don't want to spoil the experience for others here on the channel, and I'd like to give my honest first impressions of an episode when I first play it. Can't do that if I know what's going to happen. Plus, it just ruins any speculation you could possibly do, which I love doing. So with that, I guess what I'm also trying to say is that all my speculation and theories are only based on the information from the teaser, the original trailer, and Captain Spirit, which, by the way, I'll be talking about huge spoilers now, so here's a quick warning, 3, 2, 1, and let's get into it. In my first impressions video, I mentioned 2 theories about 2 different characters potentially having superpowers, Chris or one of the neighbor kids. Right now though, with this teaser, I don't really think it's Chris. When you interact with that article from before detailing that event, Chris thinks to himself in the most uninterested way possible,
"Boring."
I think if Chris was really at the center of this event, his thoughts would be far from boring. On top of that, he doesn't really make reference to this event in conversation, and one of the monologues he has regarding superpowers is about wishing he had them, so I think we can confidently rule out Chris as the one with superpowers, and instead it's one of these 2. And if that's the case, it means that whatever went down in this altercation, they had something to do with it. One of them or both of them were there, probably witnessed a friend or family member get shot, used the same supernatural powers they had to save Chris by flipping over the patrol car and killing that police officer. A pretty serious thing. So, considering all of that, how do these 2 end up in Beaver Creek, Oregon? Well, looking at the description of the teaser, there's one single descriptive line for the game: a new journey begins. Going back to my video on the original trailer, the general gist that I picked up on with the backpack is that Life is Strange 2 might center around traveling, going from one place to another with nothing except your backpack, collecting badges to indicate where you've traveled. If we take a quick look at the pre-order bonus for Season 2, they mention we can customize our in-game backpack with patches. Coming back to the teaser trailer, one of the voices at the end mentions a possible 1080, which again means chase in progress. The police are aware that other people were involved in this event and are looking for them. Coming back to Captain Spirit for a second, there's an email on Charles's computer regarding multiple complaints about unruly teenage freight hoppers in the area. This may be more of a weaker connection since there's nothing directly correlating it with these 2. Originally, I thought this was a little nod to a chapter in Before the Storm, but maybe instead, it's a hint about how they traveled to Beaver Creek. Looking at all of this together, my guess is that after the events in the teaser trailer, both of the neighbor boys run away from the scene. They know they're in trouble. They can't explain what happened or how with the police officer, and more police are going to come after them. The older one might also be aware of the bigger consequences in terms of a police shooting, and that it might lead to protests and riots. They can't stay where they are anymore, so they run, with nothing except their backpacks to wherever they can. They probably know that they have family in Beaver Creek, Oregon. Miss Reynolds is their grandmother, which is mentioned in a conversation with Chris, so they start a new journey and travel there. Being on the run from police and wanting to cover as much ground as they can, they hop on trains, similar to Chloe and Rachel in Before the Storm, and travel across the states, maybe collecting badges along the way from wherever they pass by and putting them on their backpacks, until eventually they make it to Beaver Creek, telling Miss Reynolds about being here for Christmas. Their clothes are ripped and damaged from the long trip, and on one Saturday morning, they cross paths with Chris in Captain Spirit, bringing us to now. So, if all of this is the case, some questions do pop up. Like, does Miss Reynolds know that both of them were involved in the shooting that led to the riots and protests? Well, probably not. No names were reported in the newspaper article, so I don't think any other media would know who exactly was shot, and Miss Reynolds doesn't seem to be really worried about her own family since she's more concerned about Chris. So I don't think they've told her what's happened. Plus, there's the potential for some of that classic Life is Strange tragedy. If the local man that died was a family member, like the father of the two boys, then that would make him the son of Miss Reynolds. That's gonna be a fun conversation in season 2. Your son is kind of dead and we had something to do with it and we kind of killed a cop, sorry. Another question would also be, what now from here? We figured out the connections between the teaser and Captain Spirit, but we haven't learned anything about the future. Do these two stay at the Reynolds house? Do they travel somewhere else? What happens with Chris? I assume this is where those files would come in handy, but we'll probably learn more on August 20th. Plus, I'm willing to bet that we'll probably have 1 or 2 more teasers in between then. And the final question is, what does all of this actually mean for Life is Strange 2? This teaser taking place 1 month before the events of Captain Spirit might mean that Life is Strange 2 is actually set before Captain Spirit as well. I've mentioned a lot of times previously that Captain Spirit is a prequel to season 2, but looking back at the announcements and the description, it actually doesn't say that anywhere, so I may have fucked up majorly there. I do apologize. So with that knowledge now, this journey of traveling to the Reynolds house might be when the story takes place, a story about 2 brothers on a journey across the states. This would tie into the theme of traveling we uncovered in the first trailer with the backpack, starting on October 28th and either coming to or passing by the date they meet Chris. Of course, this journey taking place over 1 month would be a big change with season 2, when traditionally Life is Strange has always taken place across consecutive days. A Life is Strange story with time jumps between episodes could be interesting in terms of our choices and character development. Another big implication of this would also mean that one of these 2 boys would be the main protagonist in season 2. I've seen a few comments speculate that the main protagonist might be Chris and we would continue his journey in season 2. However, I've always thought that Captain Spirit's choice of words in this message after the game, meet Chris again in Life is Strange 2, imply that any further interaction with Chris wouldn't be from his perspective. We'd be meeting him again as someone else. Plus, now that it's pretty much confirmed that he's not the one with powers, I think season 2 will definitely be focusing around these 2. There's also the fact that some of our choices in Captain Spirit will have some effect in Life is Strange 2, which isn't really possible if season 2 or a large part of season 2 does take place before Captain Spirit. So I think that itself is a big indication that season 2 might instead take place directly after Captain Spirit, and this teaser is only meant to give us more background on these characters, which kind of brings us back to the question of, what now? Where does the story go from here? August 20th can't come fast enough. Anyway, that's mostly everything I've been able to find from the teaser trailer. My other general thoughts on it are things like, where's the indie music? Why is everything still dark and gloomy? We've had 2 trailers that are definitely not anywhere near the sunny, comfy Life is Strange we know and love. Don't get me wrong, I love the darker aspects to the series, but Everything's been dark since the reveal. Even their website is just this grey, unappealing page. I assume August 20th is when we'll get an actual trailer and we'll get a more full picture at the kind of tone season 2 will set, so I just hope it'll show us more of that warmer, nostalgic atmosphere with a new song I can listen to on repeat forever. If there's anything I've missed or if there's any theories you guys have about what we've seen in the teaser, definitely let me know in the comments. I'll try my best to keep you guys up to date with everything going on with season 2. Things have gotten pretty busy because of life stuff again and all of that, so I might be a little more late than usual for videos. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and try to have a better day than Officer Matthews did.